Is this on?
It is. About 15 years ago, a friend came to me and he brought me a video. He wanted me to take a look at this video. It was on a subject totally unrelated to what we're talking about today. It was about space travel, and it was about what we have done in other places. And I finished watching the video, and like I often do, I kept the video running just to make sure it was finished. Well, it wasn't. About 60 seconds later, I'm watching a motorcade. And this motorcade, all of a sudden, awakened me to visions I had seen in the past. It was Dallas, 1963. I had a copy of the Zapruder film. How many here have heard of the Zapruder film? Well, I have a copy of that, and I know several people that also have copies. In the Zapruder film, it shows you who killed President Kennedy. It's right on the film. In other publications, it names who killed President Kennedy. When you see that video for the first time, it sends shivers up and down your spine, because all of a sudden, many things come into reality. Not only do you see something right in front of your eyes that has been kept from you, which had been kept from me. I didn't believe the official version, but I didn't have any proof. Now I had proof right in front of me. And when I saw it for the first time, it sent shivers up my spine, because I was seeing something for the first time. But then all of the questions started coming into my mind. If it was that obvious, how many hundreds, if not thousands of people also have this same information? And if hundreds and thousands of people have this same information, how is it possible that there's not a conspiracy to keep it quiet? To keep it from us, the general public, the hundreds and millions of people, if not billions of people, who knew about that incident in 1963. And so that, to me, was probably one of the greatest ways that I could use to tell people who didn't believe in conspiracy theory that they'd had to watch the Zapruder film. And if that didn't do it for them, then they should take a look at what's happening in health. And if that didn't do it for them, maybe they should be taking a look at the money system. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. But I brought this up for two reasons. One, to show that indeed there are things that graphically point to conspiracies occurring. And a conspiracy, by definition, is two or more people working in concert, in secret, for purposes undisclosed. Just to finish that off, do the people here know who did kill President Kennedy? Okay, we got a few people in the audience. It was the driver of the car. His car. It's right there on the film. He turns around and shoots him. Secret Service. His name is William Greer. No, he was the driver of Kennedy's vehicle. That's right on the film. Now, when you see this, as I say, when you see this, you can't help but think, how can the Warren Commission, which made over 110 discrepancies in its report, over 110, how can they possibly not know what happened there? And the dozens of witnesses that were killed thereafter, and we can go on and on into this. But the point that I was making, actually, it's really odd because it ties in with the talk that I'm giving today. And that is, there is very, very strong evidence to let us know why Kennedy was killed. And it's about the topic we're talking today. Throughout history, many people have picked up on what I'm about to tell you today. And because they picked up on it, and because they were in very high-profile positions, they were done away with. It's okay for us to know about it because we're just the peons. We can know about it as long as we can't do anything about it. But Lincoln, Kennedy, Garfield and McKinley were all killed for the same reason. And there can be a case be made that Christ was killed for the same reason. That's another story. Kennedy, on June 4th, 1963, issued Executive Order 11110, which gave back the authority of the creation of the credit of the nation into the hands of the United States government, away from the Federal Reserve. That got him killed. Lincoln put $450 million of debt-free currency into circulation. That got him killed. So, a very good friend of mine came into Edmonton about 4 years ago, and he came to one of our meetings, and he stood up at the front of the meeting and he asked the people in the audience, how many people here know that income tax is unlawful? I'm going to ask the same question here. How many know income tax is unlawful? Very good. How many people know income tax is illegal? He asked a question, how many people here are still paying it? But I'm not going to ask that question here. By the way, when he asked that question in Edmonton, over 95% of the people put up their hands to that question. The question I'm going to ask you here, how many people know that income tax is unnecessary? Wow. Well, hey, I might as well just leave. If you guys know that, then you're well on the way, because that's a tremendous number of people. If you truly know the answer to the first two questions, it's absolutely essential that you know deep down the answer to that third question. Because if you don't, you won't be able to answer your friends when they come to you and say, how do we pay for the roads? How do we pay for the schools? If you can't answer that third question, you won't be able to balance the equation. And that is, we can go around telling everybody that income tax is unlawful, income tax is illegal, and go through all of the legal strategies and common law and all of the good things that the people are doing. But if you can't settle it in your conscience and your heart and your mind that you're doing the right thing for all the right reasons, you will feel a little bit less about yourself, ultimately. And that's why you need to know that the root of all of this is the money system itself. It's absolutely essential to understand what money is all about, where it comes from, and what it really is. We've all been programmed to believe that nothing is more certain than death and taxes. Well, I think we've all seen that taxes should not be certain, and for a little while I've been working on the other one, but that's to be left, I guess, to the health people. I'm going to throw out a question to you here. What is the definition of theft? Anybody have a definition for theft?
Taking something without permission.
Okay, that's a good start. It's a good start.
Something that doesn't belong to you without permission.
There we go. That's well on the way. Ultimately, I think what we could say is to add to both of these is to take that which doesn't belong to you against the wishes of and without the permission of the owner. Well, I don't know about you folks, but that certainly puts taxation into that definition for me. But you know, when we talk about taxation and when we talk about the money system, oftentimes we're faced with a dilemma. And one of the dilemmas that I was faced with for a long time was being a member of the National Citizens Coalition, which I was many years ago. It's over 10 years ago now. I thought that I was doing the right thing by taking a look at the list every year that the National Citizens Coalition came out with of the crazy boondoggles that the government was doing. they would spend $250,000 studying the mating practices of the Anopheles mosquito. And I didn't really care about that, but I thought it was kind of crazy. So I said, yes, I've got to get into the National Citizens Coalition and do something about this. And so I wrote letters to the editor, and I wrote letters to my MP, and I did all the right things that you're supposed to do in the movement. But it wasn't until probably pretty close to 10 years ago that I had this dream, and this is true. I actually had this dream. And in this dream, a very good friend of mine was walking through Central Park in New York City. It was about dusk, about 10 o'clock like it was last night. And all of a sudden, somebody came up to him, put a gun to his head. And he said, "Give me all your money or I'm going to shoot you." Well, my friend reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed him all the cash in his wallet. And the mugger took off. And my friend walked into the nearest police station, quickly as he could. And he said, "I need to tell you that I've just been robbed in Central Park. And I want you to go find this guy and make damn sure he's spending my money wisely." Well, everybody laughs at that, and well, they should. And yet that's what we're doing. Do you really believe taxation is theft? If you do, what do you care what the thief is doing with it after he's stolen it? And honestly, it was then when this revelation came to me that I said, this is crazy. I've been barking up the wrong tree. If I can't stop the theft, why do I care what the thief is doing with my money? But there are some people who believe that taxation is necessary. And so they have come to me and said, "You know, I really disagree with your scenario." And I said, okay, I guess there's only really one other method that we need to show what's happening here. And that is, you walk into Sears one day, and you walk up to the clerk and say, "I'd like to buy a toaster." And she says, "Yes, sir. Come over. We'll show you our selection." And so you go over and you take a look at all the different toasters, and you say, "I like that four-slot one right there. How much is it?" And she says, "Sir, that'll be $50. And I say, "You've got a deal." And I take the toaster and I walk out after paying her the $50, 5 $10 bills. And 2 weeks later, I come back to Sears and I walk up to the same clerk. And I say, "Hi, remember me? I bought a toaster from you 2 weeks ago." She says, "Yes, sir. How's the toaster working?" And I said, "It's working great. But tell me, what are you doing with my money?" Well, it's really rather ludicrous, isn't it? Why would you be asking somebody for whom you paid money for goods or services what they're doing with your money? It's not your money. So either one of those scenarios, there's something wrong here. So again, if we can't get at the root cause of what the problem is, we're not going to be barking up the right tree. This was the dilemma that I faced. I knew that taxation was theft in my teens. I knew that a long time ago. But I didn't realize what the solution was until I came across the money trick. What is money? Do we have some definitions here? What is money? Means of exchange? Okay. It's a step above barter. Time. Okay. That from Stefan. Am I right? Ultimately, you're getting close.
Currency.
Well, that is a form. Currency is just one of the forms of money. It's another form. That's it. Ultimately, all money is an IOU. All money is an IOU. It is not wealth. We get very confused about this. It is not wealth. All money is an IOU. I'm a very firm believer in going to basics. to try to get concepts, to understand concepts. So let's go back to basics on this. I grow potatoes. Andrew raises chickens. Andrew and I have known each other for a little while. We're living in a community. And I come to him one day and I say, Andrew, I need a couple of chickens. I'm going to have a little dinner party this weekend. I need a couple of chickens. And you and I agreed a while ago that 2 of your chickens were worth 10 pounds of my potatoes. So let's make a trade here. And he says, well, Vern, you're right. We did agree upon that. But, you know, I must tell you, I just don't need any potatoes right now. And so I say, Andrew, tell you what. How be I write you an IOU for 10 pounds of potatoes? And he says, sure, Vern. I'd be happy to do that. Now, he is about to accept my IOU for 10 pounds of potatoes based upon his belief in two things, and only two things. My ability and my integrity to redeem that IOU upon demand. And so the transaction is made. I hand him an IOU for 10 pounds of potatoes, and he gives me 2 chickens. Our deal has been made. I got what I want, but he still doesn't have what he wants. And so the next day, he too decides he's going to have himself a little dinner party. And so he goes to Mr. Wall, and he says, Mr. Wall, you've been growing asparagus for a while, and you and I have agreed that 2 of my chickens are worth 10 pounds of your asparagus. Would you please give me 10 pounds of asparagus for 2 chickens? And Mr. Wall says, I'm sorry, I just don't need 2 chickens today. And he says, wait a second, I got this IOU from Verne Warwick for 10 pounds of potatoes. Would you accept that? And he says, yes, I know Verne, and I believe in his ability and his integrity to redeem that IOU should I require it. And so another transaction is made. He now has what he wants. He still doesn't have what he wants, but he has a claim to what he may want in the future. To make a really long story short, that IOU from me can circulate throughout the entire community as long as everybody knows me